You notice here, yeah, there's some other showers that are popping up, but these are not nearly as strong or as heavy, not causing as much in the way of severe thunderstorm reports. It's all south of the I-70 corridor, but still giving you the first alert out toward Cass County and also portions of Miami County as well. And if anything, that is probably going to be the extent of it, although there are other reports of gusty winds, maybe not damaging, and also some torrential rainfall that continues now between Topeka and Ottawa and points to the south of that. But this is a small cluster that's been very efficient in what it's doing with the wind and the hail in some instances early on. And not only that, but the rainfall amounts. I would not be surprised if we see some flooding for daybreak as well. But right now, there is at least a glimmer of hope that there's no redevelopment. Once this front moves through, that should be it for the evening hours, at least as far as the severe weather is concerned. So there are a lot of areas that are going to be clear and not having to worry about much at all thereafter. It's primarily east and southeast. And if anything, it is now in Cass County. And I think it really bypassed the sports complex for the most part. And I'm now looking at my colleagues across the studio. Just out of curiosity, Chris, is the game over? Did they win? I know it's a small fact of what's going on, but still, there are some folks who are curious about that.
The Royals won 10-3 over Cleveland tonight, so the ball game is over at Kauffman Stadium. So there is some bit of good news there. And there are reports, by the way, of some flooding in some low-lying areas inside the city of Paola, which, given the amount of rain that they have received over the past couple of minutes, that shouldn't come as a surprise at all.
Flooding is certainly going to be something we'll keep an eye on as we continue on through the night because, as Brian mentioned, there are still some stronger wind gusts out there. The tornado threat that is decreasing, so if you're concerned about that, that threat is going down, which is some good news there. We're, of course, going to keep an eye on things for you, but that threat is going away. And as I zoom the map back out here, what we're seeing now, you can actually see some of those storms trying to develop. They're not severe, but off to the west of Ottawa, we might see some additional showers and thunderstorms over the next couple of hours until that front finally sweeps on through. So that's going to add some additional rain, especially the farther south you live of I-70. So something to keep in mind, flooding threat will be there. We're, of course, monitoring those conditions. Brian, along the Missouri River, that water is going to keep going up for the next couple of days there. So for some spots, getting into minor flood stage here heading into early next week.
Just a recap in the last minute or so that, as mentioned, is all south of the river right now. Still some of the power outages. Laura and Chris, have those numbers come up any? Have we seen updates from Evergy and other folks?
They fortunately have stayed pretty much the same.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got just over 8,000 customers without power at this time.
Okay, so that's a good sign, and I'm sure they're going to try to restore power as quickly as possible. Brian Johnson's going to probably file a report before he is calling it a night for him as far as the power poles that have been snapped and down, causing some of those power outages that we're talking about. Cleveland, Missouri with a 60-mile-an-hour wind. So there you see the leading edge is still showing through and it's going to be around for a while. That is that severe thunderstorm warning that stays in effect until 11 o'clock. The tornado watch also stays in effect until 11 o'clock. So at this point in time, we're going to continue to monitor the situation here from the newsroom and the weather center. And of course, we'll let the ticker update things as they come through. For now, that's the latest reports from the First Alert Weather Center.